Yeah, we can get this party started. So I'm thinking if you just kind of want to give a little bit about how you came to be in this position right now, how you started SpiritualityU, and what your motivations were, your philosophy behind it, and really anything else that you want to tell the world, and then we can get the ball rolling.
Sounds good. Well, the whole story with like my spiritual journey, I don't really know when it fully started. It's like I keep looking back and I'm able to kind of see. Well, no, maybe it actually started there, but really started becoming like more conscious and aware of it the last 5 or 6 years. And I ended up in like a really, really dark, depressed state for a while that I ended up pulling myself out of, and kind of changed everything for me. And I started feeling more called to kind of share that story with people. I started really relating to people that were more vulnerable, more raw and real about things, like people that actually shared their experiences. It made me feel a little bit more confident going through my own. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what led to the idea of SpiritualityU. It's like, I struggled with a lot of mental health stuff at first, and then started trying to just work on myself, better myself. And as I did that, I became a little bit more spiritually minded as well. And just the combination of them, I believe, really helped me pull myself out from what felt like a irreversible state to now where I'm actually excited about life again. Because not to go too dark, but I was pretty far gone at one point where it was just like, I didn't see how anything was going to get better. I was kind of at that planning point to kind of exit life and whatnot. To go back from that to where now, like every day, I'm just like, I don't even know how I was at that point then, because now everything's just a lot better and I have a lot of better coping mechanisms and whatnot. It's just, I don't know. I feel like I can help people by sharing my story a little bit. And that's kind of the overall goal with SpiritualityU.
That's cool, man. Yeah, some people just want someone to relate to in a way. And if, all of this spiritual awakening is, it's kind of like it's a process, and the process usually starts with not feeling so well, and kind of like getting to a point where you just can't bear your own suffering anymore. And the dark night of the soul, as they call it. And that's kind of where we realize that we just can't go through it anymore. And then from there, we make certain changes that we need to make so we can bear our own suffering, essentially, right? Is that kind of what happened with you?
More so, yeah. I mean, I don't even want to say. It's interesting that you say like bear our own suffering, because I don't really feel like I suffer anymore. I either feel like I learn or I get things that I enjoy. Like normally the learning deals with a lot of stuff that I don't enjoy as much, but I don't look at it like, it's this devastating thing anymore. It's like, okay, what is this trying to teach me? I've kind of been able to flip it from things happening to me to things happening for me. And sometimes though, it's, you get pissed off in the middle of a situation and it's like, okay, I know I'm going to come around at this point, but right now I just need to be in this situation.
What made you, what enabled you to come to that kind of perspective change?
I honestly don't know. Like the turning point would have been, I think it was 2017, maybe early 2018. There was many different years of like a lot of just hardships, losing people, a lot of deaths and stuff, a lot of just soul breaking things where I just couldn't figure out which way was up, basically. And there was just one specific day where I was just sitting in a car or in my vehicle, and I sat there for like 5 hours just crying my eyes out, trying to figure out if I wanted to continue, trying to figure out if there was a way to, not to get super dark, but basically trying to figure out if there was a way to leave my body behind for people that wanted to live, could make use of it, but yet exit in a way that isn't traumatic for other people. Because it's not that I wanted to go anywhere, but I didn't know how I was going to be happy again. And in that moment, like I used to be real into music, and originally like one of my dreams was to pursue songwriting, and I had kind of given up on that. And in that 5-hour period, I decided, well, if I'm going to try to pull my way back, I need to figure out something that I want to do again. Because it was like I lost all enjoyment of almost everything I did. It was like anything that I did that brought me happiness felt guilty almost. And somewhere in that point, I decided, to buy a guitar again and start just messing with it. And slowly it kind of brought me out. I found some reason to kind of keep going. But in the middle of that, there was all this little, I didn't really realize it at the time, searching for like spiritual connections as well. And I grew up in like a Christian household and everything. We didn't go to church or anything, but very, Jesus is the way. If you don't believe in Jesus, you're going to hell kind of thing. And that never fully resonated with me because a lot of my friends aren't of that belief. And it's like, I struggled to believe the idea that they're going to, end up in some eternal pit of fire for not believing something. Mm-hmm. It's like, they're not bad people. They don't deserve that kind of stuff. So, in the middle of all that, there was also this deep searching for some kind of meaning with something else. And it kind of all stirred everything up at the right time. I, for a bit, went down that whole devote to Jesus path and whatnot, because that's what I grew up with, but it just didn't resonate with me. It felt kind of off. So it was like that breaking point just broke like everything, but it was like starting from ground zero again. It was like a giant life reset.
Mm-hmm. So how did you excuse me.
Okay, fine.
How did you reset yourself? Like what was your journey, or what is your journey?
Right. Like I said, I started with the whole music thing again, just trying to find something that excited me. And
it's being creative.
As I did, just kind of creative outlets and whatnot. And it was just like one little step at a time of like a lot of the different spiritual people on YouTube and whatnot, people that I listen to, like Victor Odo and Aaron Dowdy and them, they talk a lot about like following your excitement and whatnot. I didn't realize that's what I was doing back then to kind of pull myself out of it, but ultimately that's what it was. It was like this mixture of following my own excitement and then also following these like little spiritual things. Like I kept noticing a little bits of synchronicity popping up. Like it wasn't anything massive at the time. It was just, I'd hear the same word that wasn't common, or I'd hear a phrase or a certain song would come on at like a very synchronistic time for matching the emotion I was feeling. Just stuff that kind of started seeming too coincidental to be a coincidence anymore, that drew my attention to more esoteric concepts. Stuff started kind of popping up about like reincarnation and stuff like that. I started seeing things with books from Dolores Cannon, and it was just like I kept pulling in this information from different angles, and it's hard to like put the timeline of it because I didn't really search for it. It just came in at the time that I needed it. It was like whatever issue I was dealing with, somewhere the information would come to me that matched that would kind of help me through that at that time, which led to this feeling that there has to be some kind of other spiritual thing out there, and led me to kind of start spiritually searching and diving into that. Like, it's kind of hard to put into words just because it seemed very random at the time, but it was enough to make me start questioning what was going on. Yeah,
like things lined up a little too good in your life to be like, all right, this can't be this is no accident, right?
Exactly. It was just it was just too much of a coincidence anymore, and I was just like, okay, I got to start figuring this out, because it just didn't seem like it could be by accident anymore.
Mm-hmm. So what do you do now that you've come to this revelation of knowing that there's stuff going on behind the scenes? Like what is your belief now? Like, what do you live by?
Basically the whole thing of like following your excitement and whatnot. I've been trying to start the SpiritualityU thing. I admittedly, like, this last year has been all about finding my own happiness and starting to build the life that I want to live, instead of just, for a while, like when I was getting out of that darkness and whatnot, I was kind of being there for everyone else and just taking care of everyone. Like I take care of my mother a lot right now, and just trying to handle the responsibilities of my life. But at the same time, I'm trying to now move forward with just basically telling my story and showing the climb that I had out of that dark state into the positive state that I am now. It doesn't sound as exciting, I guess, but at the same time, when I get into like all the little nuances of it, of just how far gone I was to where I am now, because I ended up making like a giant move across the country and just kind of started slowly changing different things. And like I said, it just went from a very dark state to a very happy one. And so now I'm kind of in the beginning phase of figuring out where I want to go with this. I just started the SpiritualityU channel. I think it was actually December 31st, like right at the new year.
Wow.
So I'm still kind of figuring it all out and whatnot. I like to live a little bit more in the moment. Like I plan things, but at the same time, I've learned to kind of let the universe just flow and take action when it seems right.
I know what you mean. Go with the flow and listen to your intuition type of thing.
Yeah, it's actually how I came across you, because I mean, I had just joined Reddit, I think the day that you had made the post. And it was just like kind of synchronistic how that kind of lined up. And that's sort of, I don't know, like I sort of, I guess, had been living more waiting for those synchronicities to pop up and kind of feel guided to do things. Whereas lately I've been feeling more like, it's time to start taking more action again, rather than waiting for things to show me where to go. It's like, okay, I need to start setting paths now and following them. I've learned to be able to trust the universe and everything. And I think that's kind of what my mission is, or my goal is, to just help people get themselves to a point where they also feel that empowerment, where they are able to trust themselves and trust the universe and not feel like everything is just piling on for no reason. Help them find a way to give meaning and reason behind what's happening to them, so they can also basically start to live a life that they're enjoying rather than just suffering through.
That's great, man. That's a great mission statement, to be honest.
I mean, honestly, there's times where I feel like, am I actually qualified to do this? Because we all go through those little self-doubt types things, but it's like, when I've talked with people about just everything that kind of, and I'm not going to go into all the details of it, but all the stuff that kind of knocked me down, it's like, I'm proud of myself for getting out of it, because I didn't go on like antidepressants or anything. I didn't really have the resources for any kind of professional help, so it was all spiritually based and just myself finding what I needed at the time. So I'm kind of proud of that climb.
Yeah, you should be, man. Like, it's good to be able to rely on yourself.
Yeah.
Know that, like, really all you need is you in this spiritual journey that we find ourselves on. And really, that's the only person that can do it for you too, is yourself. So yeah, I mean, coming to that realization is huge. It's knowing that you're responsible for your own destiny in this crazy thing that we call life. That's a huge realization.
It is. I mean, I waited for so long for, someone external to come and save me, and, somebody else to do all the work and whatnot. And it was like, I would watch, relationships that I had with people that started off wonderful almost mutate into the same pattern of previous ones, where it's like the role dynamics that we'd play almost seem to be identical or very similar to previous ones. And it kind of turned to this thing where it's like, okay, well, I'm the common thing here. Like, there's no, there's no real connection between the rest. Yeah. So maybe it's me that's kind of doing this. And that's kind of what led to the whole idea of maybe our beliefs kind of create our reality kind of thing. And because I started thinking that before I actually stumbled onto information about that stuff, like the law of attraction and everything. And shortly after I started questioning that is when the whole law of attraction thing just found its way to me through a video on YouTube. And I'm like, that's what I meant by like stuff just kind of found its way to me. Whenever I'd have like a thought, like I wouldn't go searching for it and whatnot, it would just kind of magically appear. And it's like, I don't think we've mastered the whole thing of reading our minds through our headsets and stuff quite yet. At least I don't believe I have anything that does that to me.
Yeah, the algorithm isn't that good yet. I know what you mean. So what is spirituality to you? What is that? Because that could mean a lot of things.
It can mean a lot, yeah. To me, it's just kind of this connection to whether you want to say your higher self or the universe, and just understanding the connectedness of everything, from me to nature in general, to the spirit realm, if you want to actually buy into that, spirit guides and everything like that. I've gone back and forth on whether I believe that or not. I definitely shift more towards I do believe that's a thing. I don't believe I know much about it at all. I mean, let's be real, we don't even know a lot about our own planet yet. So it's like, thinking of anything from another dimension, it's like, I'm not going to be so bold to say that I have it figured out, but it's just kind of this connection that words honestly kind of have a hard time explaining sometimes, because you tap into like your intuition, you tap into what seems like this divine guidance kind of thing, where it's like you see the little stepping stones laid out in front of you, and you're feeling called to take certain risks and whatnot that don't make sense. It's just, you basically just learn to trust something that isn't there. I mean, it sounds kind of like different religions in a sense, but it feels a little bit more personal to me than like basic religion stuff. It's like a relationship with yourself and with the rest of the universe, and understanding the connection between it all. I think that's kind of it for me.
Knowing that all is one, and that we're not separate from this universe. We are in it, and because we're in it, we are susceptible to forming it to however we want to form it, and that's a beautiful thing to come to realize. It's
hard to like wrap your mind around sometimes, though, just because I came from a very logical mindset rooted thing where there was a lot of times where your feelings based on things were kind of discredited, and a lot of this stuff is seen more at like that feelsy science type based thing, at least in a lot of people's minds, because they're like, well, prove it to me. And it's like, how do I actually prove this to you? Because a lot of it is just my own experiences that I've felt internally that have these epiphanies. Like, I can't recreate those epiphanies for you in the exact way I had them. You have to kind of have them yourself. But I don't know. Like, I mean, I spent a while thinking it was kind of just this, for lack of a better word, just kind of bullshit thing that I'm like, oh, these people are just kind of holding on to something. And then it hit me and I'm like, oh, this is what they were talking about. Mm-hmm. This isn't fake.
Because it hit you.
Yep.
That's why. Because all of these things, we can only like point in the direction of where to go, but everybody has to take themselves and walk the path themselves. When you can, it's whether it's a podcast, when using our words, or it's your YouTube channel, or it's some other form of media, or it's a organized religion and all the words that they use and the symbols that they use, whatever it is, it's all just symbols and labels for the unspeakable truth of this reality that we live in. And it is a direct experience thing. It's us speaking is only gonna go so far, it's right. But if you know, and I know, and the listener knows, then we can make some kind of connection. If you know within yourself what you're talking about, and you can relate that to what I'm talking about, and we can go back and forth and play this game, I think there's something to that, because then it's just aiding in that symbol, that direction that we're pointing, but at the end of the day, it really just comes down to recognizing that unspeakable connection that we all have to this universe, man. And once you find that, you don't lose it. It's not something you just forget about. I mean, you can probably forget about that and like come out of the moment, but it's always there. Like, there's always that I don't know. It's just like, for me, it's like a sense of peace and stillness, knowing that even though at times I might feel disconnected and I might feel like part of my ego, but there's also that other side of me that is connected to this entire universe, like at all times. And because of that forms some kind of purpose in my life. Like, knowing that connection is kind of being connected with the flow of how this universe goes. And, it gives me, I feel like there's some kind of place and purpose for my life. It's a good feeling. It's a good feeling to have. It's pretty much salvation. Like when Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is within, he wasn't lying. And that's kind of the gist of it.
I believe that entirely. Like, I forget which one of your videos it was with someone recently that was talking about like Christ consciousness and whatnot. And that's something that I personally subscribe to as well. I don't necessarily know if I believe in the whole like literal second coming of, Jesus flying through the sky kind of thing, but the whole consciousness level, where it's like, I believe it was more, he came to show us you can do this kind of stuff too, start to live in the vibration of like unconditional love. Doesn't mean you have to tolerate everything. It just means you can love somebody through anything, and you can love yourself through anything. And kind of like you were saying, sorry, I bounce around a lot. My mind is like a bunch of cats in a room with rocking chairs. So if I slightly shift topics, I apologize.
It's all good,
but
man.
It's just like the whole connection thing and whatnot that you were talking about, when I can see so many similarities between just like the last few videos that I've watched from the people that you're talking to. It's like, we all sort of struggle to put it into exact words, but you can sense everyone is kind of on the same page with it. Like everyone reaches their own conclusion that's very similar. It's like their own version of it.
Yeah.
But the general theme of it all is so similar, which is one of the things that kind of made this seem more real to me, because it's like, how can everyone have basically very different experiences that are in their like own specific situations that lead them to the same feelings of peace and understanding that doesn't seem like it should necessarily be there through the circumstances that they've been going through.
Mm-hmm.
But yet it is there. And it's just, I find words are really difficult to actually fully accurately give the emotion and whatnot that's happening through it all. Cause it's like, you'll end up happy and sad at the same time. And it's like neither accurately conveys what you're trying to get across. You know, it's like this more complex feeling that just, it's really hard to actually get across, because it's like, it's all, you kind of get what I'm saying? Like, I'm struggling to actually find the words for it, like I'm saying.
Yeah, it's a direct experience. Like you have to come to it. So, and I mean, like, yeah, there's no words to really describe what it means to somebody else, because you can only really describe how it means to me. But the thing is, I can't even describe what it means to me
Right.
accurately. I mean, I can describe what I kind of get from the feeling of that, the consciousness of connection, I guess you could say. But to really internalize that, it goes beyond words. That's why meditation is so key, you know? Right. Go ahead.
I was going to say, it takes me to some of these stories that I've listened to from like near-death experiences, or, you know, the people who do like past life regressions and stuff. I forget who it was. There was actually a neurosurgeon that I watched some interview with, where he ended up like clinically brain dead and everything. He was total atheist, didn't believe in any kind of afterlife thing. But after his experience, he went hard into believing it, because basically he ended up being guided through this like heavenly type thing, where similarly to how we're saying it's hard to like accurately put into words, you always hear of them talking of like telepathy, or like this nonverbal communication in this spirit realm that people seem to experience during those out of body experiences, and how much easier it is to communicate and whatnot. And it's just, it makes me appreciate that more and think it's most likely real, just because of how hard it is to actually put into words, but yet we all understand what we're saying, even though words are failing us.
Yeah, because it only goes so far. It's like higher vibrations than what words can really convey.
Transferring the emotion. I can kind of imagine what that would be like, you know, where you're able to feel each other's exact emotions and the complexity of it without having to say anything. Like, I don't know. That's been a concept that's kind of interested me a lot, is just that kind of communication.
I think we can even touch into that. Like, I agree. You know, that's not even so far-fetched. I feel as though I can feel people's emotions at times.
Right. And I mean, I think it is really showcased with like our relationship with like animals and stuff, because obviously we don't speak the same language, but you can tell when they're feeling certain things, and they can sense our emotions as well. Like, they will react accordingly to us.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know, I think that's actually a really good example of that kind of communication working. Because it's all based off of the energy that's felt in like the tones and stuff. They don't understand the actual words, but they understand the intention. And we normally understand their intention. At least I do. I know there's a lot of people who feel similar.
Yeah. I wonder what that is, huh? Like, what is this? So what is an emotion?
I feel like it's kind of like just this, I mean, the whole like energy vibration thing and whatnot, just the different vibrations that we get into. You've I'm sure seen like the scale of consciousness or whatever that people post in a lot of videos and stuff. I think it has something to do with that, just like the energy that you emit based off of your actions and certain emotions that you're feeling. I mean, I guess it's just kind of like finding that right radio dial or whatever to buzz or vibrate at the certain frequency that our souls kind of understand. I think there was actually a study, I forget where it was. I'm kind of bad at remembering where I read stuff at, but there was one where they took people that like knew each other. They didn't know they were in close proximity, but they measured like their heart rhythms or something to do with their heart frequency. And when the person got closer, they could actually tell a real physical difference in like the vibration, the beating of the hearts based off of the proximity of the person that they didn't even know was near. Wow. So they were like trying to prove that there was like this heart connection between people, and hearts can recognize, the vibration of each other, even when they don't physically know they're next to each other. Like there's something in the body that knows that connection is there.
That's nuts.
I wish I could recall where it was, but I'll try to get that to you later if you're interested.
Yeah, I'm interested.
It was actually kind of it kind of played into this whole interconnection thing where everything is one and everything is connected.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Because I don't know, I believe that there's a lot more that goes on, like in conversations than we realize, just the energetic exchange that's involved as well. Because when you're talking to people, you can get kind of a vibe for them. And a lot of people just attribute it to like body language and whatnot, but I think it goes kind of further, because even communicating with like a child, like a baby that doesn't even know words yet, they can still interact with you, and they know if you're like yelling or just frowning, even if they seem to respond accurately as well.
Yeah.
So just like the energy that you're putting into things and the intention you're giving at them.
It's the intention. Yeah, I think it's the intention.
Yeah.
Behind our transfer of energy, whatever it is. Like if it's, I guess, do you think it's like the intention behind our words that we're using? It's kind of those words are almost like a telepathy through our energy?
More or less, yeah. I kind of believe that. I mean, I think there's a lot more that goes on when we communicate than just the words. And I think anyone that's really had any kind of in-depth conversation with someone can understand that as well, because we'll just connect at a different level. And it's like, we don't really know how to explain it, but it's just like, this person gets me, or I feel very calm talking around this person. And it's not just to do with their words, it's something to do with the actual energetic exchange of it and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like that's, we all know that, but I think some people are better at deciphering another's energy than others. But I think we all know that there's more than just at face value, my mouth noises I'm making.
Right. Right. But there's a lot of people that I feel, at least in my experience, when I was like first trying to get into this, I noticed a lot of resistance coming up, where it was like people would almost tell me to just focus on exactly what's said rather than what I feel is going on behind the scenes. And it was like that whole, don't read into things kind of thing. Don't go for anything more than what's being said. But yet whenever I would just take everything at face value, I'd end up being, remembering I should have listened to my intuition with it, because whatever kind of emotion I was feeling, if something was off or something, it would later kind of prove to be right. Mm-hmm. And that's another thing that kind of led to me feeling a little bit more, I guess, spiritual in a sense. I think that's actually one of the things that started me off with it early too, was just thinking that I could actually pick up on people's energy outputs, and that led me to the whole empath kind of thing.
I don't know, man. I mean, that's what it says in the Yoga Sutras, is that when you develop, certain levels of consciousness, your psychic abilities are a thing.
Yep. And
so we've known about this. Yeah. It's nuts. I mean, so what do you do to strengthen your intuition and become more in touch with your intuition?
I try to meditate. I'm honestly not the best at it, but I started kind of thinking there are other. I ultimately, I think, believe meditation is one of the strongest ways, but I think there's kind of other ways to meditate, and that's just getting into kind of a flow state with whatever you're doing, like letting yourself get lost in whatever you're passionate about. I feel like that's sort of a way of meditation as well, because I've met people that are highly intuitive as well, but they're not so much on the spiritual bandwagon with things, but they seem very high vibe and everything. They're just passionate about what they do. They live very similarly, where they don't really seem to have they just have a healthier mind frame with everything, but yet they don't approach everything from this, oh, there's a sign over here, from, oh, look, I just saw these numbers over here, this must mean something too. They're very much in the world, but they're like in their flow state as well. And I think that's kind of a different way to meditate, in a sense, is just let yourself get lost in something and be passionate about it. But the literal sense of meditation, I think, is probably the most powerful thing. And I've noticed whenever I do get in the habit of doing it, everything just heightens to a whole new degree. But then I find myself, for whatever reason, I think it's kind of like an ego thing, where I'm like, oh, I've done this enough, I can, I'm okay to go without it now. And then eventually I find my way back to it, and it's like, why did I stop?
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of just like something. I feel like with meditation, it's either 0 or 100.
Right.
You're either doing it for real or you're just messing around and just having some fun. Like when it's meditation, like if you're just doing it like once a week for 5 minutes, like that's great. At least you're doing it, but it's
It's not
something
going to
that
give you
should
the
be.
same benefit.
Yes, it should be done like regularly. I mean, for me at least, I'm honestly just speaking for myself. If I were to just, it's part of my life, so I can't ever imagine giving it up.
Yep.
But I mean, most likely I have, I don't think I'm alone in this. I think not necessarily more the merrier, but at least have some kind of regular practice in your life with meditation, and it will help you.
I agree with that.
I don't think you have to do it every day either. Like, some people say once in the morning, once at night or something. I think that's a little too much. I mean, it's great if you can. And if that helps you, I don't think you really need to, because once you start forcing it, like I have to do it at this time, it's 5 o'clock, I have to, then you're kind of missing the point. It's just something that should just be like brushing your teeth, Well, actually, you should do that probably once or twice a day. So I don't know, probably not brushing your teeth, but something regular
I get you.
that we do. That's just kind of part of our life. It's not something that we think about. It's just kind of it's a lifestyle.
I agree with that. I mean, like I said, I've gone in and out of that where, like at the start of the whole pandemic and everything, I got real into it, and I just felt so in the zone and in the vibe and everything. But eventually I started like getting out of it again for a little bit, and I don't really know why. It's like, I don't know, like I said, I guess it was kind of just this ego thing of thinking, oh, I'm good without this now. And I'm definitely coming back to it now, where you said the whole, morning and night thing. I've thought about wanting to do that. And when I try to get so rigid with it, it doesn't seem to stick. And I don't know why.
Because it's the same thing as following your intuition.
Yep.
It's just, if your intuition says meditate, then you probably should. Right. But if it says, go outside and go for a walk, then you probably should. But it's the simple fact of just being able to follow your intuition on what your body needs. That's the first step. Yep. And then from there, that's how you live a happy life, man. You just gotta like follow that guide. It's like this unspoken guide that we have the ability to tap into. You just gotta know where to look.
Yeah, that actually resonates quite a lot with me, because that was kind of the thing that kind of took the place of meditation for me for a bit, was just getting out and walking and whatnot. For whatever reason, it felt a little bit more healing at the time, or just more therapeutic for me. But I get that vibe sometimes to go back and just meditate instead. And I guess I actually do that more than I realize thinking about it. Like I try to make most of my decisions based off of intuition or what feels right, but I've gotten to a point where I start feeling like maybe I've gone too far into following that sometimes, where it's like I'm confusing. I like to think of having like different voices with us, where it's like the voice of intuition, voice of anxiety, and voice of desires. And sometimes I find myself getting a little too confused by the three of them. It's like they sound very similar, but the intuition one definitely stands out until you start getting them all three going at once, and then they can kind of overlap and you get a little confused by it. And I definitely notice that I sometimes will start to listen to the voice of desire sometimes instead of intuition, and think it's the voice of intuition.
Yeah.
And there's always like a lesson at the end of that path where it's like, oh no, like I knew deep down that wasn't the right thing to do. It wasn't that it was the wrong thing, it just wasn't the most optimal necessarily, but it did teach me something.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like, how do you know what is your intuition?
Yeah, that's been a big thing that I've been trying to figure out. I mean, honestly, I think I've done a good job at figuring it out, but like I said, it's kind of easy to backslide into it, where you get kind of cocky thinking, oh, I know what this voice sounds like now. Like, I know how to trust my intuition. But then the ego kind of sneaks back in there, and it's like, let's push that aside. And I know what that voice sounds like now, so I'll mimic it and start leading the way again. I don't know if you've ever experienced that yourself or not.
Yeah, it's an ongoing process, man. I'm not, it's continually, I think that's what this whole journey is just continually, because life always throws me new drama, new stuff.
Yes.
and everybody, you know, everybody's capable. I mean, that happens to everybody. But I think in that, knowing that that's going to happen, that's the first step of kind of being able to follow that, or being able to try and find that guide. The intuitional guide is knowing that whatever happens on the outside, I can find out that peace and that guide that's within me, no matter what happens. So I think that's kind of how I mean, I don't always find it. I might sometimes, like you said, listen to the ego, or just, you know, get lost in the sauce and make the wrong decision. But again, there's no wrong decision. You just something to learn from. But I think if you just start off with the basis of knowing that it's there, then you're good. You're already like miles ahead of the of most people that are in the world, than of you know, living a happier and healthier life.
Right. Like I definitely agree with that.
My personal practice involves a lot of yoga and meditation. Like, it strengthens my practice. It strengthens my, I guess you can say, ability to kind of find out that other side of me that isn't my mind. It's like, you know, it enhances my creativity, makes me calmer, more peaceful, and it allows me to be able to decipher between those voices that are in my head. I know that sounds crazy. I guess
it doesn't sound crazy at all. Like, it doesn't sound crazy at all.
Yeah, the different emotions that we feel, the different energies that come into our body. Yoga allows me to be able to decipher that a little bit better, because, you know, it is tough to, when you have so much energy coming in. I view our minds as just like an input-output machine. But through yoga and meditation regularly, it allows me to be able to decipher what comes in. So then I know how to, you know, recycle it out, because that's all we are. It's just like this cycle, literally, kind of like if you look at like yogic diagrams, it's just like this cycle coming in from the top of our heads down to the bottom of our spines. It's like the, you know, the whole energy of prana, which I don't even know if that's true or not, but it's, putting it simply, like we have a diet of energy that comes in, whether it's from other people, whether it's from the media we consume, or literally the food that we consume. It's just, there's many different energetic parts of our energetic diet. And you have to know, and the thing is, the world we live in doesn't allow us, exactly, unless you're a monk, it doesn't really allow us to be able to control all of the outside stimuli.
Right.
So doing these practices of mine, at least, you know, I do like a lot of Tumo meditation, Wim Hof breathing, combine that with yoga and regular meditation. It allows me to touch upon a part of myself and really feel how it feels, feel these energies that come in, and know what to listen to, and know where my intuition lies in the process of deciphering this stuff. And it's not a finished process. You know, that's with yoga, it's a process of it's a never-ending journey, you know. Like, yoga is a journey. So it's really just knowing, like I said before, the foundation of knowing that I have that the practice of yoga and meditation to be able to decipher. Then I already know I'm good. I might not always make the right decision, but if I don't, I'll learn from the wrong decision and then use that to weigh future decisions based upon the stimuli that comes in. You know what I mean? It's like kind of like a simple formula. It's like, it just strengthens my ability to essentially compute energy.
That makes sense. Like, I don't know about this. I've definitely, sorry, give me one sec. Brain train is going, but it's like wheels going all over the place at the moment.
I feel you. Mm-hmm.
I don't know about this. Like, a lot of what you were talking about, like, you're not really sure if this is what it's actually doing with like the yoga, recycling the energy and whatnot. I remember, are you familiar with a guy named Bashar?
Bashar, just Bashar?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
It's a little bit more of an esoteric channel type thing on YouTube. There's an actual guy named Daryl Anka who channels this higher dimensional being of himself named Bashar, who he has a lot of very profound perspectives of things. And one of the things that he would say is basically like everything that we believe is just a permission slip to get to like the next phase. And that's kind of what came to mind when you were talking about, I'm not sure if the yoga thing actually is doing what I think it's doing, or if it's just part of the process. It's like it allows you to do that, but is it doing it because that's what it actually does, or because you believe that's what it does, and it's giving you kind of that permission slip to let that energy flow that way?
Mm-hmm.
You get what I'm saying with that?
Yeah.
That perspective kind of opened me up a lot it left me with a bigger question of, trying to figure out, is it because I believe it, or is it because this is what it is, kind of thing? But in the end, I don't know if it necessarily matters, as long as it's giving something to you or you're getting something from it. I don't think it actually matters, but it made me kind of, I don't know, that perspective just kind of opened my mind wide up for a little bit to the idea that, I guess, how powerful we may be with, being able to actually co-create like the reality we experience and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is it the practice that's actually I'm getting the benefits from, or is it because I believe the practice is giving me benefits? I would have to say it's probably a blend of both.
Yeah.
But what makes me question it is the fact of like the placebo effect, and knowing that the power of belief when it just comes down to like a pill. Well, it's probably the same mechanisms in my mind when, whether it's a pill affecting my stimulus, or whether it's me doing an hour-long yoga practice, or I'm going into a sensory deprivation tank. Is it the belief that I did these things, or is it, I don't know. It's probably both, but I think there is something to these practices that allow us to become more in touch.
I definitely agree with that. Like I said, I tend to get more into the flow state from being out in nature and walking. I will get into it from meditation, but I've been doing this like coaching session with one of the YouTubers, Victor Odo, and we've been doing a lot of different things, from like past life regression to like breath work to automatic writing, and just different things like every week that are basically like these tools or soul tools or whatever for life to kind of just tap into that side of us that we are not always aware of, or tap into that higher self and that energy and whatnot. And just experiencing the different things has really been very eye-opening. And honestly, you mentioned yoga. That's something that it's been like creeping into my mind a little bit to want to do it, but I've never actually taken the step to commit to it yet. I want to, but it's like one of those things that just is gradually coming in, and I'm sure I'm going to get into it at some point. It's just, I haven't, for whatever reason, it hasn't taken hold with me yet. Yeah.
The hardest part is starting.
Yep. It seems to be like the hardest part with almost anything. I don't even want to say it's the hardest part, because, there's been many times where I like started something and I get very excited about the beginning, but then the end is also very exciting. And I have this general idea of where it's going to go, but then I get in the middle with a different set of obstacles than I thought were going to be there. And then I get discouraged or whatever. It's like, that's been kind of a thing for me, is trying to remember to see things through a little bit. Don't let yourself get too caught up on the little obstacles in the middle.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The journey is the destination type of thing. Like, knowing that there's, then that's what yoga is, man. This is the whole journey. There is no end. It's just the whole thing. The whole package is the end. It's just like it's a process of just unfolding yourself, just unpacking what it means. And I know it sounds crazy. Like, what do you mean all these stretches are going to make me come to these conclusions? It's a little more powerful than that. It's kind of, it's the whole package. It's the lifestyle of what yoga is. And it's not really just about the stretching and the exercise part of it. It's the meditation that goes into it, and it's the whole package, But I definitely encourage you to start somewhere, man. I think you would thank yourself. That's for sure.
I honestly think I would as well. I'm going to do some research on it here and probably make a commitment to start trying to do it like once a day for a little bit, just because like I said, all these different things that I've been doing, like the breathwork one, that really hit me. I didn't know what to expect with it, but man, like after the first session of it, I went into this like flow state for what seemed like 5 hours, where I was just, it was more like an automatic writing thing afterwards, but it just like opened this floodgate of information where it was like, I couldn't even keep up with it. It was like I would jump to a different idea for something. A lot of it had to do with the channel that I'm doing, SpiritualityU, like just different video ideas and whatnot, but in different topics to talk about. But I was getting like actual good in-depth information coming through that's like, oh, this is what I need for this. And the night before, I'd been kind of worrying about it a little bit, but like I said, I've kind of learned to trust the process with stuff. And that night before the session, instead of just trying to force a video out and whatnot, I was just like, I'll just wait a little bit. Like for whatever reason, I've getting that kind of intuitive voice of just wait, things work out in their own time. Just take a breather, relax. And the next day after we did that session with the breath work, it just poured out. And it was a very strong, like, reminder both for trusting that intuition, but also just learning to kind of trust the process of things. Yeah. Because 12 hours before, I had like no idea what I was going to do next. And the next thing I know, I've got like 12 different ideas that are flushed out and, just waiting to be brought to life at that point. And I didn't even see how that was going to happen. Like I said, about 12 hours before. So it's interesting to me how that all kind of works. When you just let go of the resistance to things and just let things be for a little, like just a few hours of that can be so game changing.
Yeah. Right. How do you do that? Like, how do we, if someone's like, how do I just be, man? Like what enables you to just kind of come back to that recognition of knowing and trusting the process?
At this point, it's just experience from it. But I'm trying to think like back to when I was first struggling with that, because it's become a little bit more natural. I mean, it's not easy anymore, but it's not this monster difficult thing to do because I've learned to do it before. I'm trying to think of what led to me being able to do it initially. I think it was just honestly having different information come to me from bloggers, YouTubers and stuff that were like just talking about the power of letting go of things. But it's like, well, how the hell do I silence my mind? And I think that's actually when I first tried meditation for the first time, because when I first was trying to get into meditation, I didn't understand the benefit of it. I thought it was just the idea of trying to completely empty your mind. And I'd get so pissed off at myself because stuff would be, I couldn't empty my mind. I would just, thoughts would race in and I'd be off on some tangent in my head and then be like, shit, I'm supposed to be thinking nothing right now. And then there was like a meditation. I think it was one of Aaron Dowdy's that came through that was like, don't worry about fighting the thoughts, just allow them to be there and kind of observe it. And that kind of changed all that for me. It was like, don't try to fight what you're thinking, but step back from what you're experiencing and consciously think about how you're reacting to it. Don't just react. And that actually kind of pulls me back to one of the things that really stood out to me before was, I think it was just like a meme that was floating around is saying you're either in control of yourself or or everyone else is in control of you based off of how you decide to react to things. You're either going to pick your reaction to things or the reaction is going to be picked for you by what people do to you. Do you want to be at the whim of everyone else or do you want to be in control of your own self? And that's kind of what let me get into that a little bit more. I became more determined that I didn't want to just be this emotional ping pong ball waiting for the next thing to trigger me. So that's what kind of led to the motivation for, I guess, meditation to actually take hold and having, back to the whole permission slip thing, the idea that, okay, I don't have to empty my mind. I just have to consciously pick my reaction to what's going on.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's huge, man. It's knowing that, we can't really control, like I said before, man, we can't control everything that comes in. If we're just this input output machine, but then we can, once we know that there's energy coming in, all right, that's, first of all, this, you can kind of like, oh shit, I'm feeling angry. That thought might have came from this, or like it might have came from like a certain wherever it came from, as long as you know that whatever you output is kind of up to you. So you don't have to exactly be reactive to these energies that come in. It's like if you know that whatever comes up, you might be feeling angry, might be feeling jealousy, whatever the negative emotion might be, you don't have to respond to it negatively either. You approach it with love and know that it's a part of you, but you don't have to necessarily keep co-creating that energy for the universe. Yeah, you can kind of transmutate that energy into your own thing. And that's huge, man. That's like a huge part of the spiritual awakening process, is knowing that we have control. Not always, not 100% all the time. You know, we're not perfect. We are all flawed beings, but we're all slowly waking up to the fact that we have control. We're slowly gaining control of our own being, because unfortunately we come from a world that, first of all, never told us that we have control, and second of all, never even explored that we have control. You know, like we were never taught from a young age that, like, hey, you can control how you act and how you react with things. You know, like people, like, our decision making is very like logical, like we talked about before. It's just like this. It's not something that we really touch upon. Like, it's not something where we know that we can touch upon these certain frequencies and know, first of all, that these frequencies are coming in. And once you can touch upon that and kind of recognize that, then from there we act accordingly, right? And for me personally, now that I know there's going to be a certain, especially living in the Western world, now that I know that there's going to be certain negative energies that are going to come my way, inevitably, I already recognize that. Well, that's good. I already have a foot up, and I know that I can approach whatever happens, whatever comes in, with love. And it might be a negative person, but I will try to approach that person with love, knowing that they're lost or they're just having a bad day or something. But it's the simple fact of not reacting to these energies. Like, that's why, again, getting back to the man himself, Jesus Christ, he preached forgiveness, and that's why compassion, all of these things, that's just positive energy. That's just not responding to the negative. Like, in order to create a better world, we essentially have to know that, like, there's gonna be dirtiness coming into this input output machine of what it means to be a human being. But as long as we know how to transmutate that input and make it into a output that is out of compassion for ourselves and for our fellow human beings, that's the process of becoming a human. I think that's kind of like the spiritual journey. It's not like all of a sudden one time, like, you're good and you know how to become the master of everything and all, be able to control your entire being. No, it's a process every day. It's a struggle of trying to learn how to become a better person, so that I know that I don't become reactive when someone says X or Y or Z, or someone flips me off when I'm in traffic, or I stub my toe, or just whatever it is. It's just, but as long as I know that I'm in this journey and I know that I have work to do, then I'm good. Like, I'm not trying to reach the end of the journey. I know that this is all just one long, very long learning process. I'm good. And the learning process is simple. It's that, if I could put like a graph up, like I said, I'm just repeating what I said though. It's input, energies come in. Yep. And then in the middle is us. It's our discernment. It's our free will. And then from our free will, we turn it into either love, or we keep co-creating chaos. It's either love or chaos. And love is the harder route. You know, it's not the one that usually is on the surface value of things, but it's the truth. You know, I know it sounds corny and cliche, but how we react, if we react through selflessness and compassion and good intentions, then that's It's that simple, man. That's really, it doesn't really go any further than that. As long as you know, no matter how shitty your world gets and whatever happens in your life and all the bad things that could happen and will happen, as long as you know that you're going to approach it as learning and you're going to approach it with love, and then hopefully create a better version of yourself, and then from there create a better version of the world, then that's it. That's the whole basis of it.
Yeah, I agree with that a lot. There's I think there's some concept by Dolores Cannon of like the 3 ways of volunteers and stuff, and how a lot of, are you familiar with that book at all, or that concept?
No.
Okay. Anyway, she did a lot of like hypnosis type stuff, and through her work she found that was like a common thing with different people that she would put under hypnosis, that there was basically like this 3 ways of volunteers that would come here to basically uplift the energy of the world. Like, they had different purposes. Basically, the first wave was back towards more like the hippie stage, where it's like trying to put people in the idea that love is kind of the answer to thing. And then the second wave was, I think she referred to it as kind of like the battery, where it just kind of amped up that energy. And that's more like my generation area of like, born the 90s kids or late 80s and whatnot. And then like the next wave is the wave that's supposed to be the ones that kind of make more of the change and everything, that just come in with this already kind of like high tuned energy to really take action and make change in the world. And I've kind of like seen that a bit, just because, with all the different things that have happened, all the traumatic, awful things that have happened in the world, from like the mass shootings and everything like that, you started seeing like a lot of kids, like younger ones, taking stands, and they would fall in that wave of, the third wave that's supposed to be taking action and really getting their hands dirty and doing the work. I forget like the names of them all. I wish I would remember them, but because it started like really pushing the gun control type stuff and everything, they were, from their own experience, they were really going at trying to make a change in the world. The younger girl that was fighting like climate change and stuff, you see a lot of kids taking action now, like from that, from those different waves. And you can kind of see where she almost accurately states like the different generations and what they're doing, because it's like people like, I'm assuming we're kind of close to the same age, I would guess. And it's like a lot of us are just like talking about this stuff and kind of bringing attention to it. And that's just drumming up energy towards it,
Yeah. So what were this is like specifically these 3 generations that we're currently living through?
Basically, yeah. Like I'm trying to remember the exact dates. I'm probably going to misquote it, but it's like 60s and 70s era is like the first wave. And it's not, I don't know if it's like every person or not, but it's like 60s, 70s, early 80s. And then it's like mid 80s to 90s is the second wave, maybe into the early 2000s. And then like the later 2000s, or the kids that are just starting college and younger, are like the third wave. And it's, I don't know, I've seen like a lot of real world reflection in that kind of almost being true. Because you can just kind of see it if you really look at it. I haven't been able to read the book for a while, because unfortunately when I moved, I lost a copy and I'm like waiting to find it again. But whenever I'd pick it up, it was kind of interesting too, just like the synchronicity thing of, when I say like information just kind of finds me, the stories that I would be reading in it would just resonate so much with things that I was like going through immediately at the time. But back to what you were saying with like, everything is love and whatnot, and just trying to be a more loving human being. One thing that I've kind of, I had actually done a video more recently talking about, I honestly believe that everything people do is motivated by love, even the awful things. It's just, I think people are either acting out of love for everyone or the collective, or out of love for themselves, even if it is seemingly misguided or coming off in like this hateful way. It's like, you can see where most anything people do is out of motivation to make themselves happier or make others happier. It comes from like one or the other, even if what they're doing to make themselves happier is ultimately hurting someone. Somewhere along the line, they've picked up this belief that that's what they need to do to either protect themselves, get what they want, or anything like that. It kind of helped me be able to not turn people into monsters as much, and be able to see they're just trying their best, and be able to not hold on to the hurt that people cause sometimes, because I mean, people can be vicious and mean, but I don't think anyone does it out of pure awful intention. It's just coming from a place that's ended up very wounded that they may not even be aware of.
Mm-hmm.
And taking that whole perspective it's helped me to really be able to forgive things that I thought were almost unforgivable at some point,
Mm.
Like, you can see where they're acting from, even if the action they took doesn't make sense and it seems atrocious, you're able to at least bring them back to a human standpoint where it's like, okay, well, I'm just trying to be happy too. I don't understand why you thought this would make you happy, but I can understand and at least respect the idea that that's what you're trying to do.
Mm-hmm. That's a very mature mindset.
It's not easy to keep sometimes, but I find like when I get out of whatever I'm going through with whoever's done whatever, it does make it easier to kind of come back. Because, when bad stuff happens, a lot of people just are stuck asking why, it's like, why did this happen? I just wish I knew what the purpose was of this.
Yeah.
And I think that perspective gives a little bit of a chance to answer that why. It's like, well, ultimately they were just trying to be happy. You may not understand why that would make them happy, but I mean, one way that I try to explain it is just think of, when you get like really hurt in a relationship or something and you become a little bit more resistant and just, you have your guard up a bit, like people do that to extreme sometimes. Like somebody that grew up without a lot of food and stuff, they may start stealing and stuff like that because they believe that it's not going to come to them any other way. They have to fight for what they get. They're not stealing to just be, an asshole and try to be unfair to people. Somewhere in them, they think that is the only course of action they have to get what they're wanting or needing, which is just what they're wanting and needing is just trying to provide happiness for them.
Mm-hmm. I believe that too. Deep down, I don't think any human being is evil. Like, I don't think evil. I think it's you're either just really, really lost or you're not. Essentially, it's kind of like a spectrum in a way, I guess. But like, there's a lot of lost people, that's for sure.
There are, and I try to not like look down on it though. It's like because honestly, like several years ago when I was in that real dark state and whatnot, it's like I could see myself getting angry at stuff so easily. I would snap at things, and I wouldn't be so understanding, and I would just have that more retaliation type mindset. Someone does something to me, I would want to one up them and do something bad to them as well. It's like for some reason that made me feel better, but then I kind of stepped out of that a little bit because it's just like, well, this just keeps going back and forth. That's not really accomplishing anything. And I started, the last few years have honestly just been a lot of like self-work for me, where it's like, try to unravel my mindset, try to change my belief system a little bit and try to understand why I do the things I do. And that's kind of the other thing with, I think it was from the 3 Ways of Volunteer book, where it's like, if you want to change the world, and I think you actually touched on this, just change yourself. Like the more you heal yourself, the more your energy is going to come off on people and whatnot. Yeah. Like just be the example. You don't have to make anyone else change. I mean, I've never really wanted to change because of somebody else telling me I needed to. I saw somebody, and the idea of Jesus is a great example. The part that has always stuck out to me is just how unconditionally loving, Jesus has seemed to be. And it's like, that is something to aspire to be, understand. I mean, how strong does you have to be able to let anybody do anything basically and just be like, I still love you. Yeah. That takes a lot of strength. It's so much easier to just be like, nope, get out of my life. I'm done with you. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of one of the things that really, like I said, I don't consider myself a Christian, but I appreciate the teachings of Jesus and everything. I think is very admirable and very much something that we should aim to get to, is that, like unconditionally loving consciousness level.
Yeah, exactly, man. It's just something good to aspire to, because we're not Jesus. I'm not Jesus. No. Well, I mean, some may say like, but the consciousess is that we can touch upon, but we're not. He's just a symbol, there's saying that like he didn't create Christianity, he's just a symbol. So you have to use his symbol, just as somebody could use your symbol and somebody could use my symbol to find that within yourself. And it's really simple as that. we're not going to aspire to be like him, and no one's going to aspire to be like you, and no one's going to aspire to be like me, but we can take the aspects of Jesus, John, Gary, whoever, your own dad, whoever it is, and take that and use it into your own experience. You know, it's all, these are all just symbols. They're all just pointing us in the direction of how to be the best version of ourselves. It's that simple, man. And I want to touch upon what you talked about, like how we recognize that connection, like it's between each other, and we know that we're all the same thing underneath, you know, and kind of like we're all this peace, we're all this loving spirit. When you work on yourself more, whatever that is, you kind of come to a realization. It's funny because like when you say work on yourself, it's actually working on others as well, because Ram Dass says the best thing that I can do for me is, the best thing that I can do for you is work on myself. And the best thing that you can do for you is, the best thing, I'm totally messing this up.
You're fine.
The best thing that I can do for you is work on myself. And the best thing you can do for me is work on yourself. So, and that's the conclusion you reach to, is like, oh, I am you and you are me. So when I work on myself, I'm working on you. And when you work on me, when you work on you, you work on me. It's just like this. It's this reciprocal process. And it's a great thing, man. And once you realize that we are all interconnected, you kind of realize that there's no separation. And then from there, I realized that, well, I have my own struggles. I have my own sufferings. That means you must as well. You must have your own struggles and sufferings. That means the other person does. And maybe they acted in that way because of their own struggles and sufferings, and they failed. They lost sight of that connection and that peace, that everlasting peace that's within us. And that's kind of like how I get to that point, is like I first recognize that peace within myself and know that it's there, and know that I can totally lose sight of it. I do. So maybe that person that is possibly angry at me, they just lost sight of it. And I know that deep down that it's okay. They're the same thing I am. They are just peace. They're love. They just have yet to find it. And if I react, if we react at an ego level, then there's no way. Like, it's just like you said, it's just a never ending battle. Like, if you just keep going back and forth with reactions, you have to take the sacrifice and love the person. That's why this whole aspect of Jesus touches upon, it resonates with us, because we have to, in order to fully love somebody, you have to sacrifice yourself first and really let go of the competition of the ego, and act in just such a way that is just, you're completely there with that person, and letting go of all, like, I'm trying to prove a point or trying to be better or look better or act better. When you truly want what is best for the other person, it's really powerful, man. And it's tough to get to. It's tough to always be in that mindset, but it's the truth. There's really no other way to act, you know. But it's like I said before, it's a process. I'm not there. I don't know about you, but I'm not continually residing in that Christ consciousness, whatever you want to call it, infinite consciousness, residing in love. It's this continuous journey, but at least we know that it's there. At least we know that connection and that unity, that peace, that love, God, whatever you want to call it, is inside of all of us. And if you can touch upon it once, you can touch upon it again. And it's like chasing a high in a way, but it's really not. You know, it's not. It's I don't want to even like use those kind of words to describe it, but it's kind of, I get
what you mean though.
It's the journey, you know. It's the fact that the journey is there and I'm living it. Like, I'm okay. Like, I know that a bad day isn't actually a bad day. It's just part of the journey, you know?
Yeah. I like to think of bad days as more as days of lessons or test days. Like, honestly, there's been this year, honestly, 2020 wasn't that as much as it was kind of a cluster thing for everyone else. It was actually one of the better years of my life. Like, it was very transformative, very healing, very eye-opening. But this year, like the beginning of it, I've noticed so much like reflection of things that it's like old patterns playing out in rapid succession. Like, it's like one right after the other after the other. And it's let me kind of realize the difference in myself, because 2 years ago, I would have been flying off the handle, pissed off as hell at everything, and it would have dragged me right back down to that super dark place. But instead, I've realized through seeing all this, seeing the same kind of stuff happen that used to happen, seeing myself just react to it and let it kind of roll off and be like, it's going to pass. Like, it's just kind of like going back to those experiences before to test myself to see if I'm actually reacting different or not. Mm-hmm. And I can't say for sure, but I've heard a lot of people say, once you see that you are reacting different, that pattern tends to fade away, and it either stays gone or it doesn't rear its head as much. And I've definitely started seeing that play out as well for myself. It's like, I'm noticing that difference. And I don't know, the more I've worked on myself, the more I'm able to kind of relate to other people. Like you said, you can kind of see, well, I lost that state of peace. I remember when I kind of went into this different spot and wasn't acting so loving and whatnot. I can see where this person can do that too. You can see the similarities in everyone. It's like, I still keep that. I don't want to say that I'm at that like enlightened point where it's like everything is connected and I believe that we are all literally one. But I can see the connection between everything at this point. It's like I can see where I can just see how everybody is connected and how it all plays a role in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, I mean, just being able to, the more we learn ourselves, I think the more we learn everyone, because it's just getting to the point where you're willing to look at the parts of you that honestly scare the crap out of you. Like, whenever I have stuff come up anymore, I try to see what it's trying to tell me, because I don't think we have. I mean, I had an experience kind of the other day where it actually provided a very good chance for me to do, what they call shadow work and whatnot. The friends that I was hanging out with, we were getting ready to go out to eat, and I'm vegan, so the rest of the group is not at all. Some of them are like, screw vegetables altogether. Mm-hmm. Well, we ended up going to a place where it wasn't really easy for me to eat, and for whatever reason, it was pulling up all these extra emotions, and I shouldn't react negatively to that. I mean, it was annoying, but it's nothing to get like ruin your day over kind of thing. But I was noticing these really intense emotions coming up, and I'm just like, where is this coming from? And rather than get pissed off at it, I was just trying to figure out what happened before. Because honestly, I feel like when we have like a really strong emotional reaction to something that doesn't seem appropriate to the level, it's kind of touching on a spot that's been hit on before that we just kind of buried in our subconscious mind. Yeah. And sitting with it for a few days and just understanding that something's going to come up, it took me way back to like as a kid, where I would be left out a lot by family members and stuff. And it just seemed like I wasn't getting, it seemed like I was kind of being forgotten, which was a lot of the emotion that was coming up with that whole experience. And I don't know, I found like being able to recall stuff like that and see where maybe you pick something up as a kid just allows you to kind of decide if it actually fits in your life anymore. Does this reaction, do I need to have this kind of defense mechanism anymore, or can I let it go? Like, it served its purpose then from my consciousness level or perspective then, but I've changed. Do I still need to react this way? Because a lot of our stuff almost feels like it's on autopilot, mm-hmm. It's just waiting there to be triggered again. But when it's triggered and you are conscious of it and aware of it, it lets you just be able to look at it and actually see it and figure out why you're doing what you do.
Yeah. It's like a science in a way, right? It's like,
it is. It's like your own science of yourself almost.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. It's like this doesn't work. Okay. I'm going to get rid of that. This works. Okay. I'll keep that. But it's just, like I said, like I think I said this a million times. It's like at least having that recognition, like knowing that you're able to recognize that, like, oh, this, I don't like this. I might try to work on this, or like, oh, this is coming up from, like you said, a childhood memory. just the simple fact that you have the ability to do that means that like you're probably a lot further than you might believe you think you are,
Right.
because like you said, we're stuck on autopilot. We're stuck on the hamster wheel until we realize that we're on the hamster wheel, and then we can kind of step to the side, get off it. But first you have to realize that we're on this hamster wheel.
Yeah.
Humans we're patterns. Like we are incredibly habit forming.
Yes.
So once you know that as well, you can kind of rework your habits. You're not going to get out of being a human, and you're not going to get out of creating habits. You just have to know that you have to create the right habits for yourself.
Right. And I think that actually is part of it, learning to separate, like, this is sound, I guess, a little esoteric, or I don't know, like, think of like the movie Avatar, where they end up connecting to the blue guys and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
I just saw the other day, but I can't remember everything about it, like the terms. But when you start to make that, I don't want to say disconnect, but differentiation of your body and the mechanisms that your body has with all the chemicals and everything going on, and step away from your basically your little meat suit vehicle or whatever, and step into more of the spirit side of it. I don't know. It's at first when I tried to do that, it felt very, it felt dehumanizing in a way. It kind of is, but it felt offensively so, and I think that one way I've tried to look at that before is it's just like, I feel like it's our ego getting kind of scared, because it's like, wait a minute, I've been running the show forever. Like, it's like almost like you're trying to kill me now. Like, that survival mechanism of the ego seems to kind of kick in with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, once I stopped taking that so offensively, though, it became a lot easier. But because early on, like, I would get all this stuff of seeing people on Facebook be like, you're responsible for your own emotions and whatnot. And it felt almost like an attack on me. It's like, how am I responsible for feeling? How am I responsible for what they've done to me? My reaction is my reaction to it. And I've had that conversation with people a lot, where they get kind of caught up in, wait, so you're telling me it's my fault for having my reaction? But I'm reacting to what they did. And it's like, it's kind of hard to split that hair of explaining, I'm not blaming you for what they did, and you don't need to blame yourself for what they did, but you ultimately are responsible for your response to what they did. If you're not liking your response, you do have the power to change it. But a lot of people feel, like I said, on that like little, or you said the hamster wheel or ping pong ball or whatever, of feeling like they are just at everyone else's mercy. They don't realize that they have the ability to jump back from it and just, okay, wait, maybe I can take control of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, it's hard. I don't even know how you get to that point. I think you just have to get tired of it enough to where you're like, I don't want to do it this way anymore.
Yeah. I'm always interested in that, like learning what people's like catalyst to change was, because there has to be, I want to know like everybody's like what made them so like, all right, I'm getting off the hamster wheel, or all right, this is something's going to change, because that's huge.
Right.
Whenever you make that decision in your life to say, this is it, like I have to change, or else it's just going to stay in the dark patterns that I've got myself into. Like, that's huge, man. I'm trying to think what it was for me. I'm
trying to think of mine as well. And it's like,
there's more than probably one instance where I said it. It was, it's a whole process of peeling the layers back, but I'm still probably, it's still happening today, but I want to know when I first said like, all right, I'm going to live, and I'm going to live the right way. I'm trying to think. I don't know. It was definitely a few years ago though. Like, it wasn't like when I was like 14 or 15. It was probably when mid-20s, like early 20s.
Yeah. I think it was approaching 30 for me when I first started like questioning a little bit. Mm-hmm. I was always like into this kind of stuff, but it was more like fairy tale make believe, or just, well, that's an interesting perspective, but I don't think it's real. And then it started to become real, and it was just like, it felt weird, because it's like you almost have to unlearn. You spend.
Yep, that's what
I felt like I spent 30 years learning what I thought reality was like, and then all of a sudden it's just like, okay, everything isn't how I thought it was. Reality isn't so fixed. It feels a little bit more fluid. I'm not going to go as far as to say I feel like I can just bend it to whatever I want and make things happen all the time, but I definitely feel like we're able to influence things just by being aware of ourselves in the state we find ourselves in.
Yeah.
Because I started kind of experimenting with it for a while of just, I would almost intentionally try to piss myself off because for whatever reason, it felt easier to be in that negative state. And I don't know why, but just the idea, well, especially back to the Bashar thing. One of the things that he said that kind of was most transformative to me was the universe is unconditionally supportive of us. It is so unconditionally supportive that it will bring you experiences to help you believe that it doesn't support you if that's what you want to believe, or if that's what you believe. Like, it doesn't care what you believe. It's just, it will mirror back to you whatever it needs to support the beliefs that you have. Mm-hmm. So you have to consciously decide if you want to change your beliefs. And that's one of the hardest things I've ever tried to go through, is changing a belief in myself. Because it's like, no matter how much I tell myself I believe something, there's always that little voice inside sometimes. It's like, do you really though? Mm-hmm. And getting rid of that little voice is, I don't even know how you go about doing it. Like, I've managed to do it, but I don't know if I've actually managed to consciously do it yet. You know, It's like, but that whole concept of the universe just supports you unconditionally, I started playing around with that a little bit. And I was like, well, I find myself in, this lower state for a while. It's probably easier to just go with that, because if that is the case, I should be able to recreate a lot of stuff. And it's random stuff that didn't seem connected started happening, where it was just snowballing into worse and worse things. But I would notice also, if I would get into a positive state and flow with it, same thing, like positive things would just start happening that seemed random, but it wasn't just like my perspective had changed. It was like I was actually bringing in different experiences based off of my vibration or my mood outlet. Mm-hmm. And that kind of helped me to, I definitely subscribe more to the idea that we have a lot more influence on what we experience than we realize. And just putting a thought out into the universe will sometimes actually just make it happen. Like the apartment that I live in right now, it was kind of crazy how it happened, because I'd been kind of experiment. There's a book, E Squared by Pam Grout. Have you ever heard of it? Mm-mm. It gives you like 9 experiments to prove to yourself that the universe responds to your requests. Basically, that if you believe something will happen, it's going to conspire in every way it can to make it happen. Like if you truly believe it, and it gives you very minor things to kind of do, so it doesn't feel like you're playing the lottery or some big thing that's going to be life changing. It's just like trying to get yourself to see a color car, which a lot of it can just be brought up as like pattern recognition. But there are certain experiences that I've had with it that really made me believe it more. I'll actually touch on one in a moment if we have time and whatnot. But what I was going to go with that was, it really helps solidify the idea that we actually do co-create what we experience. And it's not just changing our viewpoint so we notice things more. It's like, I feel like we actually have some power over what happens. I almost feel kind of crazy saying that, because I know it sounds very wild, but when I got this apartment, I basically just floated to the universe. It's like, I need basically a 3-bedroom on the ground floor. And I looked the day before, none were available. But I just kind of floated to the universe. I was like, I know I've seen you kind of work your magic before. I don't understand how it comes together, but could use this kind of fast within the next couple months, because eventually I was going to move the rest of my family out here. And because I had moved out here by myself to Orlando, I basically took like this giant leap of faith and uprooted everything at one point. And overnight, after putting that little request to the universe, I decided just to check the apartment thing the next morning. 3-bedroom on the ground floor had been given their notice like that very morning. It was just, I've had a lot of times where stuff like that will just work out almost beautifully, where I'll basically just float an idea, and it's like, I don't try to get in the way of the universe. I'm just like, bring it however you want to bring it. I don't know how you can make this happen. Just please do. Mm-hmm. And I found like when I don't try to create that roadmap as much, sometimes it actually just falls together in a way that I never could have planned. Because, we tend to be very narrow-minded with how we think things have to happen. And I don't know, I think that's kind of key to playing with that. And that whole idea of everything, of the universe unconditionally supporting us, that was something that was really kind of mind-blowing to me, because as I kept playing with it and trying to see what I would bring in based off of my mood or vibration or whatever you want to call it, I noticed it really did kind of respond accurately.
Yeah. Yeah, but you have to. Do you think you have to like fully believe in it?
I think it will mirror to you the level of belief you have in it. And basically, I'll go into the little story of my experiments with that book, E Squared. I had it was just the first two were ask the universe for a gift and believe that it will bring it to you within, you give it like a timeline of 48 hours or whatever. And she tells you to be very open-minded with how it happens because the universe likes to play with you a little bit. You might ask for a gift and it might not come in the form of a wrap present. I had been very deliberate with it. I either want it to be a wrap present or have it blatantly state this is a gift. And this was happening about the time Avengers Endgame came out, and it was actually opening weekend for it. I had, for whatever reason, decided to just pull into the movie theater. I had no plans on going. I hadn't even seen Infinity War or the previous ones. I kind of skipped ahead in the series and just watched Endgame first. But anyway, when I got to the theater, there's this huge line. The person in front of me asked, "Are there any tickets left?" And the lady's just kind of like, "No." Like, obviously not. It's like a Friday night, 7 p.m. and there's no tickets for this. It's a brand new movie. I got up and I asked, and she just kind of rolled her eyes. She's like, "Are you kidding?" And I'm like, "Would you just check?" She's like, "Unless something became available in the last like 30 seconds, no." Somebody had returned a seat in the last 30 seconds that I got. And at first I was like, well, that's not really a gift. I'm buying it for myself. But I had been specific in saying if it doesn't come, as like an actual wrapped gift, I want it to say this is a gift. I'm assuming, have you seen the movie Endgame?
No.
Okay. Well, anyway, in it, there's a scene where Thor's mom basically says, "This is a gift." And I had specifically stated, if it doesn't come in the form of that, I want to hear those words. Oh. And when I heard those words, my ears just shot wide open. I'm like, no, that can't be. Yeah. But one of the other things that I had done was the second one of asked to see a specific color car. I was very vague with this. I just wanted to see a pink car because I don't see them a lot, but I know they exist. I know it's in the realm of possibility I could see. Mm-hmm. After that, I kind of went driving around trying to find a pink car somewhere just to make it happen because I felt like I needed to because I wanted to believe in this so bad. Couldn't find one, and I was like, well, shit. But then I got this weird idea to maybe it was in the movie. So I went and got a ticket the next day and went and watched it again. And sure enough, there was a pink car in the exact scene I thought I missed it in. Wow. So I was like, I'm going to get real aggressive with this and I'm going to try to prove to myself. And this is all it's all circumstantial and whatnot. And I've talked to friends about this and they're like, dude, you're just reaching. Like, no, this isn't real. But
it was real for you. That's all that matters.
The next one was very basically I repeated the car thing, but instead of being vague with it of just give me a specific color, I was like, all right, I'm going to get real bold. I want to see one of those lime green Beetlebug cars within 24 hours. Specifically, I want to see it on my drive home from work the next day on South Lake Boulevard. I was in Texas at the time, and I want it to be obvious, like painstakingly obvious. Make it cut me off, do something. I don't want to have to look for it off in the distance, but I want it at this general time on my way home on this road, and I want it to be clear, make it cut me off or something. Dude, I shit you not. 5:32 p.m. the very next day, I'm driving home on South Lake Boulevard. This little lime green Beetlebug car runs a red light and turns right in front of me and cuts me off.
Wow.
And I'm just like, I was pissed and cussed out the store at first because I almost got in an accident. And then I saw what it was and I'm just like, I bust out laughing and I'm like, what the hell are the chances that this actually happens?
That's nuts.
I mean, I realize it's very circumstantial. It's like, oh, well, it's just kind of a probability thing. But I don't know. I can't really, it's one of those things. It seems very coincidental to have happened at the exact time that I request it,
Yeah, right.
That kind of made me think there is some power to our thoughts. And it's not just all random what happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that was a reminder to you because you reacted to it angrily at first, right?
Yes.
So, but that was a reminder to you that probably that you're on the right path because it was just like the act itself seemed to be a message.
Yeah, it was definitely like, I don't know. It was just a very powerful reminder to me to pay attention to what I'm thinking, because I honestly do believe that our thoughts and beliefs kind of bring us our experiences. And it made me kind of change what I was doing with the whole depression thing and everything at the time too. Because it's like, well, I keep getting a lot of bad stuff, but I also think a lot of bad stuff. If I want it to change, if this is real, I need to change how I'm thinking. Yeah. And that's kind of what I started to do to pull out of it. And, you know, now I'm very aware of it. And I still dabble with it a little bit, where I'll catch myself thinking things that I don't want to think. And then I'll have like little glimpses of it coming true. And it's just random things happening that I don't make happen, but it just does. So, yeah. I don't know. I feel like there's definitely something in that realm with it. It's definitely a little bit more esoteric idea, but it's one that I've explored quite a lot, and I honestly believe there's something to it.
I think there is too, because in terms of my own synchronicities, first of all, there's too many of them for me to be like, all right, those are all accidents. Like there's sometimes just there's been way more than I can even remember that happened to me, and I'm like, oh, okay, where are the cameras? There's somebody setting me up here. Like there's something going on. And also what happens to me with usually synchronicities is when I seem to step out of the flow and kind of like get lost in the sauce of life. It's like, for me, these things happen almost as a reminder to get myself and align myself back on track. So I don't really have any like intentions. Like I don't really try to test the universe. Maybe I will after this, but yeah, usually it's just like, it's kind of like reminders for me, like, oh, how did I forget? Like, of course, you know, it's kind of like, some people say it's like God showing you a reminder, or like God showing you his presence. You can't really say like, peekaboo, I'm here. It's kind of like the best that he can do is just line things up in your life so perfectly that it only would make sense to you. Yeah. And, you know, then you get the message, but you have to be paying attention. That's the thing. If you're not paying attention, I think like synchronicities happen all the time for people. But just nobody is really paying attention. And that's the first step, man. You just have to know where to look. Like this whole, like, you know, all this interconnectivity. This whole, like, spirituality is a very wide umbrella, right? And we can talk about various amounts of topics within it. But I think as long as you're aware of the fact of the interconnectivity of everything, then you kind of get it. Like you might be, one person might be more into yoga, one person might be more into stones, one person might be more into astrology, somebody might be into Tai Chi, somebody, like, whatever spirituality practice that you really want to do, it's up to you. But I think as long as you have the awareness to know the maturity of mind to be able to recognize the interconnectivity of things, I think that's it. Like that's kind of like, that's good. That's a good foundation. And that's kind of like the people that I try to bring on and talk on here, because everybody's different. You know, I can speak to you and you're different from, you know, I've spoken to some monastics, and then I've spoken to religious scholars and various amounts of people, but we all know deep down that we're connected in one way or the other. Like everybody has their own experiences, but as long as we all have that awareness, then we can connect, and I can share my experiences with you and you can share yours with me, and then we can kind of get something from it. But I think it's a lot easier to connect with people that have that awareness, the conscious perspective. That's why I call this whole thing. It's just like it's a certain perspective that you take on as a human being, to know that I'm not just this little vessel of a body just existing independent of the world I live in. I am the world I live in. Right. Yes. And that's all you need to know, man. But you know how you get to that, it's ultimately up to you. Yep. It's a beautiful thing.
It honestly really is. Like there's just, I don't know, there's a certain peace about it, because it's like, I used to kind of stress over like worrying. I don't want to say stress, but just, I used to contemplate like afterlife stuff a lot. And it always like worried me. It's like, you know, where am I going to end up? Am I going to end up anywhere? Is there anything after this? But then once I started like going down this path, it's just like everything feels kind of eternal. You know, it's like, I know there is something, I don't know what, but I feel like it is just I feel like everything is always going to be okay. It's like I don't feel like
Mm-hmm.
anything ever actually ends. It just changes. And I don't feel
Yeah.
like I don't worry so much about it. It's like I'm here for whatever reason I'm supposed to be here. There's different things with that too that I've heard of, like we choose to be here, we choose to have the experiences we do and whatnot. I don't know how much I believe of that, but I guess it's just I've been opened up to at least consider every opportunity and every possibility rather than just dismiss it,
Yeah.
like rather than think everything is just set. It's like, well, that could be. I don't know if that actually resonates with me,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just opened me up to a lot of different ways to find peace in different things and not feel so afraid of everything. It's like once I stop being afraid of stuff, it let me feel excitement again and not be so wrapped up in taking everything so seriously. It's like I got to be more playful instead of taking everything as like life and death, because it just opened me up to not being afraid of death as much either.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it doesn't feel like it's going to end. It just feels like it'll change.
Yeah. That's huge, right? That's like, what more do you want?
Yeah.
To not be afraid of your own demise.
Right.
Well, I don't know if it's like not being afraid. It's a recognizing the fear is there and kind of not taking it so seriously. Don't let it control you.
Right.
It's kind of it's the same thing, responding to that differently. But yeah, there is that sense of me that's kind of like, no, it's like, whatever. It's not going to take this seriously. Kind of like that lighthearted approach. Once you kind of, it's like salvation in a way, knowing that.
Right.
Because what is that aspect in you that knows that it's eternal? Is it that, for me, it's knowing that I'm not this body. So if I'm not this body and eventually this body is going to perish, then I'm not going to die, because there's, I'm not here to die. It's just like this, I am this entire world. I'm just a fixture of energy in this world. And, I don't think the consciousness not existing, it's not going to not exist. It just changes.
Yep.
There has to be a reason for everything that's going on. There has to be something. And I'm not just reaching. Like there has to be a reason for my very, very small, very temporary existence. There's some kind of purpose for this conversation. There's some kind of purpose for everything that happens in our life,
Yeah.
And I don't think I'm reaching. I don't think I'm being too idealistic or optimistic. I think it's just like people that would say like that are like nihilists and would just ultimately dismiss any idea. They just haven't found that purpose. Like they just haven't found that spark. But once you find that, it's like nothing can hurt you. Like you are immortal after death, but you're also immortal in your own life. You know what I mean?
Yep.
You have this like fortitude where like nothing can really hurt me, because I know that there is an essence in me that is unhurtable. It's unpenetratable. There's that essence and that goes beyond life and death. And bro, you can't talk about it. You can't really, like, to someone that doesn't know what that essence is, there's no formulation of words that I could use to enter their eardrums where they could be like, oh, yes, they just point them in the direction and they have to find out their own way. But it's salvation, it's salvation. It's a way to like save ourselves from our ultimate demise, because we are all going to perish. But if you think you're the body, it's very daunting. It's very scary, understandably so. But I know deep down, I'm not.
Right.
What's more beautiful than that, dude? That saves us. That is what that is. Getting back to what we talked about in the beginning, that is what Christ consciousness is. It's coming to that idea, that state of mind, that level of consciousness that allows us to be saved. That's why they say Jesus saves, because when we get on his level of Christ consciousness, then essentially you are kind of reborn, not physically, you're spiritually reborn.
Yep.
To know that you have everlasting life. Even though it's not life in this body, you have an everlasting presence, an everlasting essence. And that's beautiful, man. That means like, oh, this is all happening for me. This is all happening for a reason. My death is for a reason. My birth is for a reason. And yeah, that right there is happiness for me. Just knowing that this is all just this process, and I'm just caught in the middle of it. That for me, that's it. That's all I need to know. Doesn't mean I'm not going to have a bad day. Doesn't mean I'm not going to get hurt. Doesn't mean I'm not going to get angry, jealous, whatever it is. It just means that I learn to recognize those things and know that those things are also part of the process. And yeah, there's no resistance. It's like it's also a letting go of like entropy. It's a letting go of the inertia of life and just kind of going with the flow. The ups and the downs. It's all the same. It's all the same flow, man.
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything you're saying with that. I mean, just the whole like follow Jesus thing and whatnot. I don't believe that it was meant to turn into what it did with this cult like religion that uses it as a way to feel superior. I honestly think it was just meant to free people and show them, look, it's not so much follow me for, to please God or anything like that. It was follow me so that you can learn how to live a more peaceful life. And there's little quotes like that, the kingdom of heaven is within and whatnot. I feel like all that kind of plays into it. And that's what it was trying to teach, was you just have to find this in yourself. And to find it in yourself, you can kind of follow Jesus and follow his teachings of it. Mm-hmm. I think that's more what it was meant to be, rather than what it kind of turned into for a lot of people, where they use it almost as like a weapon, And for a while, I actually got so like, I would almost like reject religion and everything because it seemed more hurtful than helpful. But I've kind of been able to dial it back again and be like, okay, no, I see where I needed that perspective at the time to separate from it. But I've found myself like coming back to it, but just not in the way that I don't think I'll ever go back to believing in the idea of like a literal hell where people go to be punished and whatnot for not recognizing it being the correct God or something like that. That doesn't, that just doesn't resonate with me, like at all.
Yeah.
But the idea of just that consciousness level transcending things and being able to find that level of peace, that resonates with me a lot. And I think that's something that why people keep saying, like, get ready because Jesus is coming back any day now. I think it's because deep down there's just like soul reminder that it could be any day, because you can tap into this whenever you want.
Yeah.
You just have to decide you want to and actually open yourself up to it. But people are waiting for that like literal thing of flying through the sky kind of thing, trumpet sounding and everything, and something for it to be external of them, I think there's a lot of symbolism in a lot of the things that people say, even from movies and stuff like that. Like, I don't know. I find a lot of hidden meanings in almost everything. And sometimes stuff that I just remember from a long time ago, like the whole thing of, like I was going back to for just a second of, like us creating our reality and stuff. There was a movie, if you can't tell, I've actually watched a lot of mainstream stuff sometimes, or I used to. I don't so much anymore, but there was one on the Disney Channel called Halloween Town. And there was a quote in it that really stuck out to me even as a kid. It was, magic is really very simple. You just have to want something and let yourself have it. And I've kind of, that's morphed for me in a lot of different ways, where it's like, I find that we get in our own way a lot from things that we want. We complicate it so much instead of just letting it come to us. And I think it's very similar to like spirituality and stuff. It's like some people search for it in such a aggressive way. And really all they need to do is just sit back and observe and let it show itself to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's honestly how I found it. It wasn't until I stopped really looking that it found me. And it came in at like the right doses at the right time with the right information. That was just perfect to kind of crack down my little walls and barriers that I had up to let me be able to receive it in a way that didn't feel like it was an attack.
Yeah. It's going to surrender.
Yep.
It's just the aspect of opening up. That's where it starts, kind of just like, that's what it is. You surrender because this is the whole basis. We're on the hamster wheel. And then we surrender and say, not anymore. I'm not running anymore. I'm just going to let it come in. I'm going to step off the hamster wheel, I guess. But in order to step off, you have to stop running.
Yeah.
And just surrender and kind of let whatever comes in come in, and you learn how to work with whatever comes in, and approach it with love and create a better world.
Yeah, I think that's what we're all trying to do in our own way, and I think the best way to create that better world is just every person individually just kind of learning themselves a little bit more, exploring themselves, and being as authentically them as they can. It's like the whole thing, be the change you want to see in the world. I think we're either letting everybody else's vibration and stuff influence us, or we're being the one that's influential. I mean, there's been how many motivational speakers, it's like one person in a room speaking that just inspires a bunch of people to do better things. It's like that one person, their energy that they give off, they're not being influenced by everyone else in that room. They're the assertive one. They're the one that they know themselves and they know what they're talking about. And that one person can make such a huge difference, but yet so many people feel so small and like they can't make a difference. But I think it's because they haven't really found their own power and stepped into their own selves. They keep waiting for somebody else to tell them who they are or how to be who they are, rather than exploring it themselves. Like for a while, I honestly I don't want to say I stayed away from information, but there's tons of books and stuff on the stuff that I've been aware of that I just, for whatever reason, haven't felt like I need to dive into yet. And I feel like it's almost coming to my own realization with things before that information hits me, so I can see, okay, I kind of got on this page before it was presented to me, which makes it seem even more real, because it's like, it didn't, I don't know how to explain.
I know what you mean, because if you read it first and then it came to you, you might think, oh, this might be confirmation bias. I might think this is real. I might just be, I might be faking it. My ego might be faking it to think that I'm doing the right thing. So you want to experience whatever this is first and then read it after.
And see others have experienced it as well. Then it's like, well, if they came up with the same thing, but we didn't ever connect in a way that would let us be aware of each other and that information, it seems like it has more credibility, I guess.
Yeah, that's the way to go. I like that. That's a good formula.
So, I mean, you got to branch out enough so that your perspective can change, so that people can plant those little seeds to start changing things for you. But I think a lot of people get very lost in trying to find someone to tell them exactly who they are, because they don't, I don't know, they just don't. Hold on one second, I gotta take a drink because my throat's getting dry.
Yeah, go for it, man. You gotta stay hydrated.
No, I think it's just, I mean, myself included, for the longest time, I just sat there waiting for someone to tell me who I was, and waiting to be like, I mean, the last few years is a great example. I'd share my findings and my experiences with my friends who are so not into a lot of this stuff. And they're just like, okay, sure, cool. You're kind of weird now, by the way. But I think I was just like waiting for them to believe it as well, because it felt like if they believe it, then I can believe it. But eventually it got to the point where it's just like, no, like I know I'm having these experiences, and I know it's not just something that I'm like making up in my head. It's something that is very real, and there's tons of people out there that I don't know that have very similar experiences where they just had this epiphany, which is like, no, this is real. I don't care what anyone else says. It is very real. And I know these other people will come to find it's real in their own time, but you stop looking for that external validation, I guess. Yeah. It's like you eventually just decide I'm credible enough in my own way. It's like I forget where I learned about it. I feel like there's a lot of stuff in media. I think that's where mainstream media gets a lot of bad rep, because there's a lot of stuff that almost makes you not want to believe your own senses, your own experiences. I mean, how many times have you heard the saying, you can't believe everything you see or everything you hear? And I think that's like subconsciously telling us to not trust ourselves. But yet when I started to trust myself, even when other people were telling me not to trust these things that I'm trusting, everything got so much more clear.
Yeah, that's
It's
why
like,
it's important, like we talked about, tap into your intuition, because that
yeah,
is where the trust comes from.
yep, yeah, yeah.
There's really no other person that's going to be able to tell you it's the way other than your own intuition. If you want to look at that as almost, it's not a separate entity, but in a way it kind of
Right.
is. It's like a separate perspective, I guess. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was in the same boat too. I was always like trying to, because I know intelligent people, but just because you're intelligent doesn't mean you're, it doesn't
Right.
mean you know the way. So I'd always try to like go up to my intelligent, peers and explain these concepts and stuff to them, and they'd be like the same thing, like, oh yeah, that's cool, I guess.
They'd have another explanation for it, and you're like, no, you're not quite hitting the right.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think it's stuff that science can't eventually explain. I just don't think we're quite there yet, because I forget, again, I've said this so many times, I forget where I heard this from, but there was some quote of, we'll make more advancement in science the day that we learn or decide to start exploring the things that we can't see, than we have in all the rest of scientific studies combined. Like over the years, it's like once we start to explore what's not so readily available for tangible proof, we'll start to really understand more. And I think that's kind of, I don't know, I've seen a lot of people get kind of standoffish, the same way that people get standoffish with religion, with like science in a way. And I even did it myself a little bit, where it's like, well, no, your science stuff can't explain this. It's like, it can, it's just we're not looking in the right place,
Yeah.
And I think, I think people get so caught up in trying to be right and proving that their version of it is right, rather than, well, what if it's all pointing to the same thing and we just need to mesh it all together? Like,
exactly.
Stop thinking that there has to be a division, or I don't think any path is necessarily wrong. It's just there's so many people on this planet. There's millions upon billions of different paths, basically.
It's just but those paths create dogma. Like science is some dogma as well. Yeah. And if you get too lost into that, then you're going to be lost. But you can also get lost in the Christian dogma, or any kind of. It's really comes down to a system that thinks for you rather than you thinking for yourself. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be telling you, certain scientific proofs on things, or it could be some kind of religious text. As long as you are thinking for yourself and you know how to decipher that stuff, then that's fine. But if you're letting these other things tell you how it is, then it doesn't matter what you're learning. You're still just as lost, I
think that's actually a good way to put it, because it's like, as soon as you make that switch from just waiting for other people to tell you what's true, and you decide what's actually true for you, I think that's the moment where you start to learn yourself and actually become you, rather than the you that you think you know. I think that's actually really spot on with it. It's
huge, man. Being able to think for yourself.
Yeah.
Because we're conditioned to not. For most people in the Western world, you go to school at the age of what age do we go to school? 3, 4, 5, around there? That's when we start.
Somewhere in there.
So majority of our life, we are quite literally conditioned to have a certain paradigm of thought. And people tell us this is how it is. This is how you live your life. This is who you are. But it's not actually. They don't tell you how to think for yourself. I think the most important thing is knowing how to weigh things in your own being. So the whole spiritual process is kind of a process of deconditioning yourself from the paradigm of the Western world, which tells you that you're essentially just like a cog in a system, or just like this. You're not the spiritual being. But once you do the work yourself, you realize that you're way greater than what we have been led to believe. And it's a great thing. I don't know. That's just part of the thing that I guess everybody will come to eventually at some point. Because it's not the truth is lying in being able to think for yourself and make your own decisions and see the world how you want to see it, create it how you want to create it. That's the truth. Like there's no, you can't fault the truth. It's either you're going to live a lie for a very, very long time and eventually wake up, or you realize the truth and you're forever saved. And just some people just haven't woken up, I guess. That's why they call it being awakened. They just literally have to wake yourself up from the dream of the ego and start living for yourself and thinking for yourself. But I don't know. We all need that wake up call, but I don't know what it takes for everybody to get on that page, man.
I think it happens in everyone's own time, honestly. Like, I don't think it's, I don't want to say that I don't think people should try to, speed it up or whatever. Words are kind of failing me again. I don't think it's something that is like, oh, you have to do it by this time. But at the same time, it's like, I do see where things could be so much different if people just had a little bit different mind frame from it and had a little bit more trust in something more than themselves, and not, and when I say more than themselves, I don't just mean, like the deity that they think has it right. I mean, just the collective and basically how the universe works and everything just coming together when it's supposed to. Like, I do think things happen. I struggle with trying to say it happens at its own right time and saying that, well, now is always the right time. It's like you're always ready to do it, but you'll do it when you're ready. And that kind of almost contradicts each other. But I feel like there's a nuance in there that I'm trying to strike that I'm not really striking quite perfectly yet with that idea. You kind of get what I'm saying? It's like, now is the right time, but whenever now is the right time for you.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
You just have to be ready.
Right.
You just have to know. Yeah, it's always the right time when things happen, but I think you just have to have the awareness that it's the right time.
Right. Yeah. Like, I don't think anything comes to us at a point.
But you have to decondition. Like, again, back to it, you have to be able, because you have to, in order to know that it's, that is, these things are happening for you, you have to decondition. We haven't been brought up in a world where we're conditioned to know these things, that we can think for ourselves and have the awareness to know that our suffering is for us, or whatever happens is for us in this life, and this universe is a mirror. We literally have not, like, nobody has any idea of these spiritual topics, which should be, in my opinion, instituted in our life, like from a young age. It should just be like it just should be like known things that are just, we don't even think twice about it. There's just kind of like, obviously we create our own reality. Obviously our thoughts create our own reality. Obviously I'm responsible for all of my actions in my life and whatever happens in my life and how I respond to it. And just like, go through the list. I feel like these things should all be in our being. And it's like a process of deconditioning and recovering what we've lost, Yeah.
Maybe just something like a perspective type class where it offers options or something, like, not you don't want to run into the risk of trying to tell people exactly what to think, but trying to give them
how to think, the
ability. Yeah, exactly. Teach them how to think, present them with a lot of different ideas. I mean, my aunt used to work in a school that was, I think it was called like a Montessori school or something like that, where it wasn't so rigid with, oh, this is how you learn math. They had like games and different tools or ways to go about the traditional curriculum in a non-traditional way. And a lot of the kids that I saw learning through that, they seem so much happier and well balanced with things. They seem they learned in their own way, but they learned the same principles. They just learned to think. Yeah.
We're not taught that, man.
No, we're not.
That's this whole spiritual awakening process is really being able to think, or at least being able to shift our thoughts in a certain direction. But first, like I said, we've said this plenty of times, you have to become aware of them. And then once you become aware, you take the right habits to better facilitate better thoughts, better life, a better future. But we're not, it's how to do that. If we're taught how to do that, then people can do that in their own way. We're just like, we're just not though, you know. But I don't know. I guess that's why we have the internet, and thankfully we have the internet, because if I didn't have the internet, I wouldn't have been exposed to certain ideas. And I literally learned yoga online, you know. It's many other things online. So yeah, thankfully we live in the greatest time to be a human being, where you don't need, it's easy to decondition yourself if you really want to. You just have to want to. And where does that want come from? Reaching a point where you just say, I'm fed up, I guess. You just reach a point where you just say, I want something new. I want to be happy. I want to be free. Liberation. I think that's what we all chase, you know, just the feeling of not being trapped anymore. And that's what it was for me.
Yeah. That's helped me to actually have an appreciation for all the awful crap that I went through that kind of broke me. It's like, it wasn't fun at the time, but I realized it helped me a lot to get to this point, you know, like wouldn't want to go through it again, but knowing what I know now, I would go through it again to get to this point again, you know.
That's huge.
It's like, I didn't enjoy it, but I see the purpose for it, and I can see where maybe that was the only way to get me to this point. And I wouldn't go back if I got the opportunity, because it is, I don't know, sometimes I miss the simplicity of when it seemed like everything just happened randomly. But I like feeling like there's something I can do to make an improvement to things, rather than just be waiting for the next bad thing to happen, you know?
Yeah.
It's like giving a purpose to it. And, you know, like you said, when we find our purpose, it kind of helps with everything. And finding a purpose for anything that happens to us definitely changes how we view everything that happened as well.
Yeah. We're all looking for purpose. Right? We're all just looking for a reason why we're here, which nobody really knows, you know. There might be a lot of good ideas, but nobody knows exactly why or how we got here. But I think it lies in the whole process of growth. It lies in not just growth of your bank account, but growth as in growing to be a better entire being, and just growing to treat others better. And I don't know, just growing into, metamorphosizing into a being of light and love. That's really what it's about, you know. I don't care what anybody says. They get like, you gotta get the numbers up in your bank account, or you have to get a certain amount of followers. It's not about that, man. It's about becoming a better person, and then from you becoming a better person, other people become better people, and we create a better world. And that's really why, putting it simply, I think why we're here. I don't know, like, you know, other people might have these grand ideas of, like, we're different yugas and yoga, and just like the whole process of God becoming aware of itself. But I mean, those are all very esoteric. Those are all things that just, you know, it's cool to entertain. But putting it simply, getting rid of all the grand ideas, putting it simply, I think we're just here to become better people. And from that, other people become better people. It's touching upon an act of selflessness, but it's selflessness through working on yourself. And that's what life's all about, man. I really do believe that. It's a never-ending process, and it might not be the prettiest process, but it's not meant to be pretty. It's not meant to be easy. It's not meant to be all butterflies and roses. But at least with that awareness and knowing that it can be a kind of ugly process, then you're good. Like, that's, as long as you have that footing, you're set. There's nothing that can hurt you, knowing that this ugly, you know, process, it's not ugly. I think life is beautiful, but, you know, the first in dukkha, life is suffering. You know, you're gonna go through stuff, you're gonna go through shit, but as long as you know that it's all temporary and it's all happening for us to realize what we are, how we come into become a better person, then you're good. You're set. Anything other than that, in my opinion, doesn't really mean anything. You know, like, as long as you know that, like, whatever happens in your own life is a reflection of how you're supposed to be feeling in that moment, it's whatever happens is happening for you and not to you. That's it. That's all you need to know.
Yeah, I feel very similar. I think a lot of people, when they come to this belief system, end up resonating with that idea very much. It's just like, I'm okay. Like, I'm always going to be okay.
Yeah, it's like, okay to not be okay.
Exactly. It's like, I'll find myself in better circumstances at some point, and until then, I'll learn lessons, kind of thing.
That's it, man. Keep that going your whole life, and you'll live I don't know if even happy is the right word. I guess you'll live a liberated life. Yeah. You'll live a life free of the chains of the ego and the chains of this crazy materialist world we live in.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly helped me have an appreciation, like I said, for just the things that I wasn't appreciative for before, that I don't necessarily want to have happen, but it's like, well, it has its purpose, and I'll see it for something beneficial rather than seeing it for something that's just bad luck. You know, it lets you kind of find beautiful in the things that aren't supposed to be beautiful, or that we have been conditioned to think aren't beautiful.
Exactly. But it's all beautiful. Even when it's not.
Agree. I agree. Very much so.
Yep. It's all perspective, man.
Yep.
The conscious perspective.
Yes. Yeah.
And on that, I think we can wrap this thing up, man.
Yep. I'm good. So,
we went over really a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me on here very much. I've honestly enjoyed the conversation. Like, I'll admit, like, I don't want to say nervous, but just, I'm still getting used to doing this kind of stuff. Like I said, I just kind of started everything about a month ago. So still getting used to the whole camera thing and talking and whatnot. So yeah, I apologize if I talked in circles a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know what you mean. It can seem a little intimidating, but it's just us just having a conversation.
Exactly. And that's what I kept telling myself. But yeah. Anyway, it's not at all. I greatly appreciate, the conversation. Like, it got gears turning a lot for me as well. So
yeah, I appreciate you coming on, man.
Yep.
So the podcast is only as good as the guests that we bring on,
Yep. Well, I hope you got something from the conversation as well.
Yeah, definitely, man. It's good energy. All this is all good energy. Sometimes I need to be reminded of certain things. I got to bring my mind back to sometimes most of the stuff and things that I talk about on here are just like spur of the moment. Like, I don't really ever have anything prepared. So sometimes I come to certain revelations literally as it's coming out of my mouth.
Right.
And there's also times where I'm just like, what did I just say? I have no idea what I just said into the microphone. So right. I hope everybody recognizes that too. There's a lot of times I'm just like, what? I have no clue what I'm saying. But it's all good intentions. It all means well. So I don't really think about it too much.
Yeah, I try not to. Like, that stuff that I've been shedding a little bit, just term I like to use is just trying to be authentically me, not worry so much. Mm-hmm. I know there's going to be people that resonate with me. I know there's going to be people that don't. And the people, it's like, I'm meant for the people that resonate. I'm not meant for the people that don't. So it's like, Why worry about it? But it's hard to kind of shed that insecurity sometimes,
Definitely, man. Deconditioning. It's tough.
Yep. It's all it really is.
Years of deconditioning, 1 month, probably you're not going to be there yet,
Yeah, no, it's like we spent our whole lives mastering the other way.
Yeah.
It only makes sense if it takes just as long to master the other.
Yeah, exactly, man. It's a whole very long process. Some say multiple lifetimes, but yes. Who knows? We'll see. As long as your intentions are pure and like you said, you're acting from a place that is authentic and you truly believe it is authentically you, then that's the best you can do, man.
Yep, I agree very much. Anyway, Gary, thank you for having me, bud.
Yeah, with that, have a good night, man.
Night, bud.
Peace out. I'll be in touch.